today we have with us Upender Gupta ji, who has a very good, a glorious, I must say, career in the public services, and is the person, in short, if I say, is the person who is the key person in shaping the GST regime of this country. And we have with us CA Atul Gupta ji, who has been leading from the professional front to solve all the problems that the taxpayers are facing in the GST regime, and has been a very active professional, I would say, in the indirect tax sector. So, before starting with the deliberation, would like to, though I believe that both the the dignitaries who are available with us today needs no introduction. Their name in itself is an introduction, and they need no kind of introduction that who they are and what they do. उनके नाम से ही हम लोग उनको पहचानते हैं और उनके काम को उनको हम जानते हैं. But still, सर की रिस्पेक्ट में, I would like to tell you a brief profile of both of them. Upender Gupta, sir, as we all know, has been in the public services, and he's a IRS officer by profession, and he has also by professional he's a chartered accountant, company secretary, cost accountant, and recently he has taken the license of advocate also. He's the person who has been a very prominent, who has played a very prominent role in shaping the GST law as we see today. And he has been awarded a presidential award for that also. So we welcome you, sir. For Atul Gupta, sir, he's a chartered accountant and an advocate also. And he has been leading the professionals he has been a past president of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India also, and he is today on the board of IFAC also. And with respect to his role in GST, he has been successfully winning various matters before the various authorities in the area of indirect taxation, and being in the practice for more than 20 years. So with this, we start our today's deliberation. Sir, first question goes with you. जैसा कि आप सर इतने साल आपने इतना अच्छा जो आज हम लॉ देखते हैं सारा का सारा आप ही की उससे है सर, तो हम थोड़ा सा आपसे सर आपका बैकग्राउंड पूरा जानना चाहेंगे कि ये जीएसटी लॉ लाने में क्या आपके एक्सपीरियंसेस रहे एंड क्या आपकी जर्नी रही सकती है.
थैंक यू अनमोल. मैं जीएसटी से जनवरी 2013 में जुड़ा व्हेन आई वाज पोस्टेड एज एडिशनल कमिश्नर इन टीआरयू फॉर जीएसटी रिलेटेड वर्क, और मैं जुलाई 19 तक मिनिस्ट्री में काम किया. मेरी करीब 7 साल की जर्नी जो मिनिस्ट्री में रही वो बहुत एक्साइटिंग थी, क्योंकि जीएसटी लॉ बनाने में, रूल्स बनाने में, प्रोसीजर्स बनाने में जो सेंटर और स्टेट का कॉपरेशन था, पॉलिटिकल विल थी पॉलिटिकल लीडर्स की, ब्यूरोक्रेटिक सपोर्ट थी टॉप से, वो सब एक डिफरेंट एक्सपीरियंस था. फिर जीएसटी काउंसिल की फंक्शनिंग के बारे में आप सबको पता है. जीएसटी काउंसिल एक कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल बॉडी बनी जिसमें कि जीएसटी से रिलेटेड सारे प्रोसेसेस, सारे लॉ, सारे रेट्स सब वहां से रिकमेंड हुआ और जीएसटी बनी. इनिशियली बहुत सारे इश्यूज थे. स्टेट्स की रिजर्वेशन थी कि जीएसटी आएगा तो रेवेन्यू लॉस होगा, जीएसटी आएगा तो उनकी जो है सॉवरेनिटी पे अफेक्ट होगा, जीएसटी आएगा तो जो रेवेन्यू लॉस होगा उसकी भरपाई कैसे होगी. तो ये सब चीजों को काउंटर करने के लिए या इन सब चीजों को रिजॉल्व करने के लिए बहुत सारी कमेटीज बनी. हर बिजनेस प्रोसेस पे अलग कमेटी बनी, रिफंड पे बनी, रिटर्न पे बनी, और उस टाइम जो है सेमिनार्स किया करते थे हम लोग की बिजनेस प्रोसेसेस के बारे में, ट्रेड को बताए. ऑलमोस्ट एवरी वीक देयर वर सेमिनार्स. फिर रेवेन्यू लॉस कैसे काउंट होगा उसके लिए रेवेन्यू न्यूट्रल रेट्स पे एक कमेटी बनी. उसके अलावा जीएसटी लॉ बनाने के लिए लॉ कमेटी हुई जब काउंसिल बन गई, फिटमेंट कमेटी बनी रेट्स के लिए. तो इन सब चीजों में जो एफर्ट हुई, जो कॉपरेशन सबका मिला, चाहे वो ट्रेड हो, इंडस्ट्री हो, प्रोफेशनल बॉडीज हो, सेंटर और स्टेट के ऑफिसर्स ने मिलके ये सब जो बनाया, वो आपने देखा 30 जून 2017 की नाइट को 1 जुलाई 2017 से आया। तो हर हर चीज पे एक कहानी लिखी जा सकती है कि रिफंड के बारे में क्या क्या सोच हुई, या पेमेंट ऑफ टैक्स के बारे में क्या क्या सोच हुई, या लीगल प्रोविजंस, हर चीज के ऊपर बहुत सारी चीजें हुई जो कि पहले नहीं देखी गई थी सर्विस टैक्स लॉ में या सेंट्रल एक्साइज लॉ में या वैट लॉज में। वो कुछ नए प्रोविजंस भी जीएसटी लॉ में आए क्योंकि वो रिक्वायरमेंट थी। और सबसे बात बहुत ज्यादा, सबसे जो जरूरी बात थी वो ये थी कि कंसेंसस बने सेंटर और स्टेट में। उसी का नतीजा है कि ये सब चीजें जो है बनी। एंड आई हैपन टू बी कमिश्नर जीएसटी एट दैट पॉइंट इन टाइम, आई वाज लीडर, सो मैंने ये सब क्लोज क्वार्टर से देखा। और ये देखा कि अगर पॉलिटिकल विल है, ब्यूरोक्रेटिक विल है और मेहनत है और जज्बा है मेहनत करने का, तो कुछ भी चीज को अचीव किया जा सकता है। तो ये in nutshell, I would say that has been my journey while framing the GST law.
Thank you so much, sir. I believe many of us had this question, and we are very pleased to hear all these stories behind how this law was formed, how this law was brought forward. So, sir, since the topic for the day is litigations under GST, so I believe many of the professionals as well as industrialists, they have this question that, sir, while putting forward our arguments or while drafting any show cause notice or any appeal, what things should we keep in mind from the department's perspective so that we put forward our best reply, best case in front of the department, and we obtain a favorable judgment so that हमारी जो बातें हैं हम डिपार्टमेंट तक पहुंचा पाए, हमारी अपनी आर्ग्यूमेंट्स, हमारी अपनी सबमिशन हम पहुंचा पाए। तो सर आपसे क्वेश्चन है कि डिपार्टमेंट के, बिकॉज यू हैव बीन चीफ कमिश्नर हैड अ वेरी ग्लोरियस करियर सर, तो डिपार्टमेंट के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से क्या हम लोगों को सर चीजें ध्यान में रखनी चाहिए जब भी हम कोई अपील या रिप्लाई फाइल करते हैं डिपार्टमेंट के पास, तो उनमें हमें क्या पॉइंटर्स का ध्यान रखना चाहिए?
जब भी कोई भी जवाब, जब शोका नोटिस का या अपील में अगर हम अपील फाइल कर रहे हैं, सो अकॉर्डिंग टू मी देयर आर फ्यू पॉइंट विच एवरीवन मस्ट कीप इन माइंड। फर्स्ट इज, first and foremost is what is the allegation, what are and what is the crux of those allegations, which provisions are said to be violated, which provisions of the rules are said to be violated, और या किसी प्रोसीजर से रिलेटेड है, तो वो कौन कौन से लीगल प्रोविजंस है जिनका वायलेशन एलेज किया गया है, और शोका नोटिस को कैसे लाया गया है, शोका नोटिस में उन चीजों को कैसे लाया गया। तो फर्स्ट वी मस्ट अंडरस्टैंड एंड देन वी शुड पुट आवर आर्ग्यूमेंट्स for each and every allegation in brief. We should not write stories. हमारा ऐसा नहीं हुआ है कि जी हम जवाब बहुत लंबा लिखेंगे तो उससे ज्यादा इंप्रेशन पड़ेगा, बल्कि टू मी इट अपीयर्स कि इट गोज अगेंस्ट। सो द रिप्लाई शुड बी क्रिस्प, टू द पॉइंट, countering all the allegations, duly supported with the documents if any। और उसके अलावा लीगल प्रोविजंस को हमें बैक करना चाहिए, ना कि हमें स्टोरीज लिखनी चाहिए वहां पर। नेक्स्ट पॉइंट इज कि सारे जितने भी पॉसिबल डिफेंस रिप्लाईज हैं काउंटर करने के लिए एलिगेशंस को, वो हमें सब करने चाहिए। ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि हम ये अगली अपील में ले लेंगे, वी डोंट गेट फेवरेबल ऑर्डर एट फर्स्ट स्टेज और सेकंड स्टेज, वी कैन टेक दिस पॉइंट इन ट्रिब्यूनल। नो, आवर रिप्लाई शुड बी कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव इन ऑल रिस्पेक्ट्स, keeping taking into account all possible defenses which one can take। और जैसा मैंने पहले कहा, सारे के सारे जो सपोर्टिंग डॉक्यूमेंट्स हैं दे शुड आल्सो बी देयर। नेक्स्ट पॉइंट इज कि हमें केस लॉज देखने चाहिए, रिसर्च करनी चाहिए, और उसके बाद रिसर्च करने के बाद जो भी रेलेवेंट केस लॉज हैं हम उसमें जो रेशो है उसको यूज करें। केस लॉ को भी पूरी स्टोरी लिखने का नहीं फायदा है, जो रेलेवेंट एक्सट्रैक्ट है वो हमें लिखना चाहिए। उसके बाद जो है हमको जैसे मैंने पहले कहा कि सारे पॉसिबल डिफेंस अप्लाई होने चाहिए। और पॉसिबल, कई बार क्या होता है कि हम इंटरेस्ट के बारे में बात नहीं करते कि इंटरेस्ट क्यों नहीं लगना चाहिए या पेनल्टी क्यों नहीं लगनी चाहिए, या अगर हमसे डिमांड की जा रही है और वो पैसा हमें रिकवर ही नहीं हुआ है तो हमें कम टैक्स का बेनिफिट क्लेम करना चाहिए। कई बार हम वो भूल जाते हैं कि वी हैव नॉट क्लेम द बेनिफिट ऑफ कम टैक्स। So adjudicating authority finds it difficult कि if you have not claimed that benefit, how he can allow that benefit। और रिक्वेस्ट फॉर पर्सनल हियरिंग जरूर करनी चाहिए। उसके बाद जब हियरिंग का नोटिस आए, एक तो हमें ये ध्यान रखना है कि 3 से ज्यादा एडजॉर्नमेंट नहीं ले सकते हैं। कई बार हमें कि हम ये भूल जाते हैं कि एडजॉर्नमेंट हम कितनी भी बार ले सकते हैं। नो, हम 3 बार ही आर्गुमेंट जो है 3 बार ही पर्सनल हियरिंग का एडजॉर्नमेंट ले सकते हैं। जब हियरिंग के लिए जाए तो वी शुड गो वेल प्रिपेयर्ड। हमारे जो भी डिफेंस रिप्लाई है उसका क्रॉस रेफरेंसिंग होना चाहिए, हाईलाइटेड होना चाहिए। हमें एडजुडिकेटिंग अथॉरिटी को तुरंत बताना चाहिए कि ये वाले पेज पे ये वाला पैरा पढ़िए या ये वाली लाइन पढ़िए। ये नहीं कि हम उस टाइम सर्च कर रहे हैं एंड वी आर यू नो फेलिंग टू पॉइंट आउट कि व्हाट इज मोस्ट रेलेवेंट पॉइंट। क्योंकि हियरिंग आपको बहुत ज्यादा लंबे समय के लिए नहीं मिलती, और लंबे समय के लिए मिले भी तो अफेक्टिव हियरिंग नहीं होती है। अफेक्टिव हियरिंग के लिए क्या क्या तैयारी करनी है कि हम जितने भी हमने केस लॉ रेफर किए हैं उसको रेलेवेंट पोर्शन को हाईलाइट करके 2 कॉपी लेके चलनी चाहिए। एक हम एडजुडिकेटिंग अथॉरिटी को दें और एक अपने पास दें, जिससे कि हम तुरंत उनको बता पाए। फिर सिनॉप्सिस होना चाहिए डिफेंस रिप्लाई का कि जो मेन पॉइंट्स हैं सिनॉप्सिस की फॉर्म में, मे बी वन पेजर और 2 पेजर, वो वी शुड बी एबल टू प्रेजेंट टू द एडजुडिकेटिंग अथॉरिटी सो दैट ही कैन इमीडिएटली अंडरस्टैंड द इशू एंड ही कैन डिसाइड। आई थिंक अगर हम इन चीजों को ध्यान में रखेंगे तो देर इज ए स्ट्रॉन्ग पॉसिबिलिटी दैट वी विल गेट फेवरेबल ऑर्डर्स।
Thank you
थैंक
so
यू।
much, sir. Sir, adding to this, I believe that many a times we see that in the hearing, the professional who is appearing or the taxpayer who is appearing, they don't usually highlight the case law, the relevant portion, and the question comes up from the front that what is the relevant para that you want to highlight. So that thing I believe.
Yeah, that is what is also very important.
Right, sir. So, sir, the same question goes to you from a professional's perspective. Like sir mentioned many times that all the this submissions should be taken. Many a times the taxpayers do not take various submissions which are relevant for the case, but they skip out those submissions intentionally or unintentionally. So, sir, from a professional perspective, who has an experience of more than 20 years, and we कीप ऑन सीइंग सर, आपके पोस्ट देखते हैं तो आप ट्राइब्यूनल्स में बड़े सारे जजमेंट्स फेवरेबल रिसेंटली आए सर। तो आपके पर्सपेक्टिव से सर, एक प्रोफेशनल को हु इज अपीयरिंग बिफोर द ट्राइब्यूनल और बिफोर द लोअर अथॉरिटीज, व्हाट पॉइंट शुड बी केप्ट इन माइंड, एंड आल्सो व्हाट submissions should be like, what are the common submissions that should be taken in the draft, sir?
Thank you very much. And at the outset, I'm thankful to CA Upendra Gupta ji for sparing his valuable time to join us, and thanks to the team Taxo as well, which organizes this very important program at the very right time and giving me this opportunity to participate. As you rightly mentioned, Anmol, and since we have a few friends from the South India as well, so I will speak in English only. You rightly asked me the question that when you are appearing and with the more than 20 plus years of experience, as the sir rightly mentioned that you have to keep in mind the various merit aspect, that okay, when you are preparing the reply, that you have to concentrate on the merit part and with giving the jurisprudence as well. Yes, that's the most important part, but there are the certain aspects which I believe are also very, very important when you are preparing the reply. And I will say that I can give you the 6, 7 mantras for that, or maybe the checklist you can say. The first checklist or the mantra will be that first of all, you should check whether the SCN is a valid SCN or not. So at times you will find that the SCNs are vague in nature. I will say that there are the judgments recently came from the Honorable High Court that if you are giving a one-pager SCN, a summary SCN,
Right.
without giving the complete details, then it's practically a vague SCN. Number two, that I'm talking about the vague only. Number two, at times I contested the case recently, wherein what happened that the SCN was alleging to the SST that the service may fall under the business auxiliary service or under the business support service. Now, how the SST will be able to respond that, or the professional will be able to respond that, when the issuer of the SCN is not aware, is not confirmed that activity will fall under the category A or the category B. So this is again a case of a vague SCN, and I can tell you that there is a judgment of a Shubham Electricals, which is being upheld by the Honorable Delhi High Court, and now there are the many judgments. Even I contested twice or thrice on the same ground, and the Honorable Tribunal given us the favor that yes, this is a vague SCN. So it's very important. I can give you the 10 different examples when the SCN can be a vague SCN. So my friends who are listening this program, they need to understand that before going into the merit of the case, as sir rightly mentioned, that okay, you have to concentrate on the merit, but before that, you also should see by reading the SCN line by line and point by point that okay, whether this SCN is a vague SCN or is a right SCN. Number two, when you are preparing for an appeal, say for example, you contested a case and there is an adjudication order against you. Now you are preparing the appeal for the same. Now what will happen at times you will find that the orders are traveling beyond the SCN. So the second point which we should also consider at all the times, that whether the order is going in line with the SCN or not. Now again I will give you an example, two or three examples. Just for example, there will be a summary order. There was a SCN of a, say for example 40 page or a 1 pager. You submitted your reply and without considering your reply, they again passed a single page order. Or without considering your points, they not given any rebuttal on your points, but simply said that okay, there was a case, a discussion and finding. So X, Y, and Z appeared and the order confirmed. No, that is not a right order. Now this may be considered either way, but I am telling you there are the cases. For example, now in one case which I encountered, that the demand was there under the supply of tangible goods services. We contested the case, for example, that okay, no, agreements are saying that this activity should be more classified into the clearing services. My agreements are saying like this. And then the adjudicating authority passed the order stating that the demand was there in the supply of tangible goods. And based on the arguments and the agreement submitted by the SSC, now I upheld the demand under the cleaning service. Now what happened, that the demand was there in the X service and the order came in the Y service. Again, this is the case when the order traveled beyond the SCN. Likewise, there will be a case when the demand was created only for 17, 18, 19 and the demand is being confirmed in the 19, 20 as well. So again, this is the case of an order traveled beyond the SCN. So my dear friends, whenever you are reading the show cause notice or the order as the case may be, it's very, very important that we need to have in our mind that the second mantra, whether this order is traveling beyond the SCN. The third one is that prior to the 2022, as per the provision of the section 74, there was a consultation which was a mandatory requirement, that pre-show cause notice consultation. Now the word has been replaced, the shall word has been replaced with the word may. But prior to the 2022, there was a requirement. Now, and many times what is happening that either the pre-consultation was not given or the pre-consultation was given in the morning and in the afternoon you are getting a show cause notice. So practically that is again a kind of a situation when the something procedure is not being followed. So now not only I am giving this point, but I can give you the many other points like this when the procedure are not being followed while issuing the show cause notice. So that is also we should be considered and reviewed by the SSCs and the professionals whether the procedure has been followed or not. So it is the merit which will come certainly, but before that you have to write like a without prejudice to above. The SSC wish to submit as under that okay, the SCN is vague or the order is traveling beyond the SCN. So I will go to the merit later on. Let us understand that this order itself is a void ab initio, or this show cause notice itself is a void ab initio. That is something that we have to give, and along with the jurisprudence. Now the jurisprudence, my dear friends, are either whether aware or not, is something that you are relying upon on the similar kind of a judgment. So there is a word called res integra, meaning thereby the law which is already settled. So in case you have a certain settled judgment which are being followed by the various judgment, and now you are quoting the same judgment that okay, if you are giving the order in one category and the show cause notice in the different category, so there is a settled judgment that okay, that show cause notice, that order will be void ab initio, that order will not sustain. So that is something that we need to substantiate, give, and then only come to the merit. The fourth one, that at times you will find in the show cause notice that the penalties which are being imposed. So rightly sir mentioned that you have to contest the penalty as well. But at times you will find that there are the two penalties which are being imposed under section 76 as well as under section 78. Meaning thereby that not only you are showing a malafide, you are saying the department is saying that you have a malafide intention. The department is saying that there is a the failure to pay tax as well. So both penalties cannot be there simultaneously. So what my dear friends has to contest that they need to contest that okay, only one penalty can be there. Now whether the penalty under section 78 can be there or not, section 74 is rightly invoked or not, maybe we can discuss in some other question. But I just wish to share with you that is something that very important. Somebody one has to argue. The fifth one, which I will say that opportunity of being heard. Now, what happened as sir again mentioned that the three opportunities will be available and there should not be any ex parte order because that will go against you. But at the same time, there are the cases when the show cause notice issued, no opportunity of being heard given, and automatically the order is also being delivered. Now, what is this case? This is again a case when the doctrine of natural justice is not being followed.
Right.
Meaning thereby you are not given an opportunity to appear. So how you will be able to contest your case? So in these kind of a cases, the honorable high courts are straightway remanding back the cases or remanding back the order or rescinding the order, saying that okay, this is bad order because you have not given the opportunity of being heard to the SSC. So that's a very important point also that when you are getting an order where the no opportunity of being heard is being provided, straightway SCN came and then finally the order came without any appearance. Then also there is a case that you can contest and I believe that you will certainly get the benefit. Then my dear friend, the sixth point which I wish to discuss, maybe Anmol will give us the time to discuss, is whether the section 74 is rightly invoked or not. So there will be a case when their demand is there for a extended period rather than the limited period, normal period, their demand is there for an extended period. So whether the section 74 is rightly invoked or not is something that we should deliberate and maybe in some other time I will discuss and deliberate that is because that required a separate discussion altogether for 10 minutes that okay how and when the section 74 should be invoked or should not be invoked is something that is there. Then, my dear friend, the last and I will not say the last but not the least mantra, which I will say, and as rightly mentioned by sir, that for example, when you are preparing your reply, at times we feel because sir has already covered that point, the come duty benefit, but I just wish to share with you that when we are preparing a reply, and more I wish to convey you that there should be a three parts. The one part should be on a technical part, that whether the STN is a valid one or not, whether the section 74 is rightly invoked or not. So you have to write you have to start with a without prejudice to above. Now, without prejudice to above, you are writing all these things, and then you are coming to the without prejudice to above. The SSC wish to submit on merit. Then finally, again the third time there should be a without prejudice to above that you have to ask for a come duty benefit. Then only ultimately, otherwise what will happen? As you must be ready with this kind of a situation that when you are preparing the reply for the show cause notice, you have to track the future litigation. Tomorrow, if you will say that okay, at the lower level, if you lost the case and you are going to the tribunal or the other forum and you want to take a new plea, then that will not be able you may not be able to take that fresh plea at the higher forum. So that's why it's very important that whatever is there in your mind, you may have alternative plea, you may have a community benefit, you want to take any section 74 or you want to take any other point. You have to take all those points within that show cause, the reply of the show cause notice or the appeal as the case may be, you are preparing. And that's why it is rightly being mentioned in the various program, even by myself and many other authors as well, speakers as well, that if you have the 10 hours available to prepare a reply of a show cause notice, the 3 hours should be devoted only to read the show cause notice. The 4 hours should be devoted only for the research part that okay, what you have to write, what all the judgments are there, notification circulars which are relevant to your case are there, and last 3 hours should be there only to write the reply or the draft the reply of the show cause notice. That should be a bifurcation. It should not be a case that the show cause notice came and you immediately start writing that okay, I will research later on. Practically, you will not, you will end with the no benefit, no results. So that's a very important point that one need to consider.
Thank you so much, sir. So friends, I believe that many of us queries are already answered in this particular question that I raised from both of the members who have joined us. Sir, as rightly mentioned, that the key takeaway I believe from this discussion till now is that all the grounds that are there should be taken. Many a time taxes don't take that ground, and sir has given us a very detailed analysis of what all those grounds can be. One of the important ground I believe is order traveling beyond SCN. And sir, we'll definitely take a brief from both of you on section 74 also, because I believe that is a very painful point for taxpayers, because many a times this section 74 is invoked by the authorities, and the demand is asked for the larger period along with 100% penalty. So we'll come to that point. Also, friends, I would like to tell you that I would like to request you कि आप सब अपनी queries, you all please put your queries in the chat box, and after deliberating on all these questions that we have received in advance, we'll definitely come to all your questions from the chat box. So, sir, moving forward, another pain point I believe is the issue of e-way bills that is there in the GST regime. Though I believe personally, I believe that it is going to streamline the supply in a very effective manner in the times to come, and even in today's era, it has streamlined the supply in a very good manner. But sir, many times we see that at the time of interception, the authorities invoke section 129 for the detention of goods, and in that 200% penalty is being asked for. So, sir, from your perspective, we want to ask you that in what cases do you feel that section 129 should be invoked, and in what cases do you feel that it must be avoided?
So before I come to the question, let me give a small background about e-way bill. So why e-way bill has come? So in pre-GST regime, you would be aware that there were checkposts at the state borders. When we moved from one state to another, were in the uh, we were seeing long queues of the vehicles standing at the both sides of the border, state borders, and documents were being verified by the VAT authorities. There was a system of e-way bill in pre-GST regime also, but that was only intra-state for the movement within the state. Different states have different kinds of requirements of e-way bill. So at the national level, when the GST law was being made, it was thought that we should avoid these checkposts, and we should have, because now there was no arbitrage in the tax rates, because if you move goods A from state X to Y, in both states the rate of goods is same. So there is no arbitrage in GST regime between the states. So therefore, no forms are required. So therefore, no verification of the forms is required, and therefore the checkposts were vanished. But then it was thought that now, because the free trade is available from JNK to Kanyakumari, there should be a system for checking on the way. So the e-way bill system was introduced with uniform provision, uniform limits across the country. Small variations are there for intrastate movement. Somewhere it is for 50 kilometers, somewhere it is for 100 kilometers. But broadly, the principles are same, that the value for interstate movement should be more than 50,000, then only e-way bills are required. So e-way bills is to be there with the invoice, and part A, part B, which is filled in at different point in time, but before movement of the goods, part B must be filled in. So there is a provision in the GST law that if one vehicle is carrying multiple consignments having more than 50,000, then the transporter should generate a bill, but that provision has not been implemented so far. So individual consignment value more than 50,000, the requirement is there. The procedure is that e-way bill, once checked during the entire journey of that vehicle, will be checked only once. It cannot be rechecked again. There are systems that detention should be reported, then the infringement should be reported. All those procedures are there. So there is a circular on this, circular number 64 of September 2018, which lays down that in which cases the penal provisions should not be invoked as laid down in section 129. So to my mind, when there is no e-way bill, or part B is not filled, or the invoice is not there, and from the circumstances it appears that there is an intention to evade, then only section 129 should be invoked. Initially it was 100% tax with 100% penalty, then later on it was changed to 200% penalty, because the tax in any case has to be paid by the taxpayer. So this circular 64 lays down the situation in which the minor penalty of I think 500 rupees should be invoked, of 1000 rupees. I don't remember that number. And similarly, there are various decisions of different high courts wherein it has been laid down that in which cases section 129 should not be invoked. So if it is mere procedural, then only the 129 provision should not be invoked. That is my view. And the high courts have laid down certain decisions like breakdown of the vehicle during transit, or part B could not be filled because of technical glitch on the portal, or vehicle number 1 digit, 2 digit has been mentioned wrongly. So things like that, if they are there, then uh, generally 129 should not be invoked. That is how 129 should be operated.
Thank you so much, sir. I believe the important point is that needs to be kept in mind is one, intention to evade payment of taxes, and the second point, as sir mentioned, is that procedural on for the procedural lapses, for minor lapses, this should not be invoked. So, sir, moving forward to you, another important point that we see in today's era is regarding the problems being faced by the exporter of services mainly. So friends, in these cases, the department usually say as per the place of provision services, the person who is claiming his services to be export of services, those are intermediary services. So sir, we have this particular question from you that how do a person identify whether his services qualify as an intermediary or his services rightly qualify as export of services as per the place of provision service?
Thank you, Anmol. And first of all, I just wish to clarify you that the activity which Anmol is referring is something about the which came from the provision related to the IGST vis-a-vis the place of supply rules. Now, my dear friend, when we read the place of supply rules, which try to classify that okay, which activity will be treated as export of services or which activity will not be treated as a class export of services. The provision says that, say for example, I am rendering the consultancy services. Now, when I am rendering a consultancy services within India, say for example from Haryana to Haryana, my place of supply is in Haryana, so it will be an intrastate. But in case I'm supplying these services from Haryana to UP, then my place of supply will be UP, that is the place of the recipient, and will be treated as a place of supply, and my activity will be classified as a IGST, that is the interstate taxable supply. Meaning thereby that normal principle is that wherever the place of recipient is there, that will be treated as a place of supply as a general principle. Now, my dear friend, as the Anmol asked me a question, and specifically these questions are there when you are a commission agent or you are an agent of or you are providing the services like so for example, you are a procurement agent or you are providing the back office operations, you are providing the, say for example, you are taking the advertisement services, or you are a university related activity, you are providing the, you are engaged in the admission of the students for the foreign universities. So on all these aspects, what is happening that at times the question is being raised whether your activity will fall under the intermediary services or as a normal service. Now, what is the difference between an intermediary services or the normal services? That in case of intermediary services, the rule says that the place of supply of your service will be the place of the service provider. Okay, so now in case if my service will fall under the intermediaries definition, then my place of supply will be my place of location, meaning thereby my activity will not be so. Even if I am rendering services to a person who is located in Paris, but if my service will classify as intermediary services, my place of supply will be my place, meaning thereby Delhi or Haryana, and in that case, its activity will become a taxable supply. Now, my dear friend, since the intermediary services change the fundamental provision, the fundamental rule that okay, where should be the place of supply, it is very important that we need to differentiate that what will be whether my activity is an intermediary service or not. Because if it is intermediary, your service will not be treated as export. Now, my dear friend, when we talk about the intermediary services versus normal services, the fundamental principle is that whether I am providing the services to my recipient as a principal to principal or as an agent to somebody else. So in case my services which I am offering to the another person, I am acting on a principal to principal basis, then my activity will be classified as export of service and that will not be an intermediary service. But whereas I am working on behalf of somebody, I am giving you an example. Say for example, the company X is there which is located in Japan and they have to repair a particular machinery in Gurgaon and they appointed me and now I am repairing that machine on behalf of the Japanese company. Or say for example, I have to do an inspection of the clothes to be exported and I am doing the inspection services on behalf of the Japanese company. In that case, what will happen? That will classify as a intermediary services because I am not rendering the service on a principal to principal basis. Whereas, say for example, I am running a KPO, I am running a PPO, or I am providing the services of admission to a university. So in all those cases, what will happen that I am not providing the service on behalf of somebody. I am providing the service on my own behalf, and it is a service between me and the service recipient on a principal to principal basis. And this particular aspect was even deliberated and argued even in the service tax regime. And there are the judgments. There are the judgments which say, even by the tribunal and even upheld at the higher level, that in case the services are being rendered on a principal basis, then that activity will not be a intermediary services and will be qualified as an export. Whereas if I am providing the services on behalf of somebody else, then I am acting as agent of that principal, and in that case, it will be an intermediary service.
So, sir, I believe the important test that you have laid down in determining whether this falls under intermediary or not is first whether it is on principal to principal basis or principal to agent basis, and secondly whether I am rendering services on behalf of someone else.
Yes, and you can, if my colleagues wish to refer, there is a judgment from the JetPack India Private Limited versus Union of India, which is a landmark judgment for this purpose, which try to classify that or clarify that okay, what is this principal to principal and what is principal to agent. And I believe that my viewers who are listening this program, they will be able to go to that judgment. And I believe that the Taxo even having that particular judgment available on their portal which they can refer and take the benefit of this kind of
Thank you so much, sir, for letting us know the judgment. So, friends, the judgment name is Genpact India Limited, which is a judgment of Punjab and Haryana High Court. So, sir, moving forward, this is again another question.
Yeah, and even sir has rightly just because sir is like a mentor for all of us, and sir has just updated me that there was no appeal filed against that particular judgment, meaning thereby that judgment got the finality. So meaning thereby the principle which is being laid down by the judgment in the Punjab and Honorable Punjab and Haryana High Court is now got the finality, the settled principle of the law, and you can very well use this judgment for the benefit of or for arguing the various cases. You are also into this kind of a litigation as far as the service tax or the GST is concerned. One more thing, which I just wish to clarify you that there is no difference between the service tax regime and the GST regime as far as the definition and the other related provision for the intermediary services versus the normal services as we witnessed in the service tax as well as in the GST.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, moving forward, sir, I have a question from you. I believe this particular question is being, मतलब ये बहुत लोगों का question होगा. Sir, I want to seek your views on the issue of parallel or repeated proceedings. There are two things that I want to ask, sir, in this particular question. Firstly, what is the validity of parallel or repeated proceedings? For example, let's say an audit is being conducted at an assessee's place, and during the course of audit or even after conclusion of audit, some other department of the same some other wing of the department, let's say anti-evasion or the jurisdictional officer comes for the same issue or same period. So what is the validity of that? And secondly, sir, there are many discussions going on this particular aspect, that whether if a matter has been concluded by the central government, Whether the same issue can be or for the same period can be taken up by the state authorities also or vice versa case. Sir, please.
So, Anmol, this issue comes up because of dual levy of GST. Because same transaction is subject to levy of CGST and SGST. So, therefore, there are two tax administrations. So, technically speaking, because there is a CGST Act and a respective SGST Act, then both the tax authorities have full jurisdiction for the tax administration. So this issue was deliberated in GST Council, and I believe in January 17 this issue was discussed in the council meeting, and it was decided that for ease of doing business, the taxpayer should be presented with a single tax administration. So therefore, this concept of assignment of taxpayer to a respective tax jurisdiction was provided by the council. So administratively, the taxpayers are assigned either to the central authority or to the state jurisdiction. The council also decided that the day-to-day affairs, scrutiny of returns, audit of the taxpayer would be conducted by that tax authority to whom the taxpayer is administratively assigned to. For example, if a taxpayer A has been assigned to, say, Haryana State GST Department, then the audit, then the scrutiny, then the day-to-day affair, the refund of that taxpayer A would all be handled by the Haryana State Authority, even for the matters relating to CGST as well as IGST as well as compensation cess act. Last two being the central levy. But then the council said that the as far as anti-evasion activity is concerned, both tax authorities would have complete jurisdiction. So therefore, this doubt comes in that if taxpayer A, who is assigned to Haryana State GST, can a anti-evasion activity be done against him by the central state tax authority also? The answer is yes. Technically, legally, they are empowered. But there is a small rider on this. So for a particular issue and for that particular period, whosoever authority starts the investigation first, that authority will take the investigation to the logical conclusions. The other tax authority would not do on the same issue and for the same tax period. So uh, that is what the position of the law is, and what was recommended by the council. As far as scrutiny audit is concerned, so generally speaking, if the scrutiny is taken up, audit is not done, and vice versa. But as I said earlier, it would be done by the respective tax authority to whom the taxpayer is assigned to. I think you also asked that if the audit has been done, can the anti-evasion be done? The audit, to my mind, is a test audit. It is not a comprehensive audit. It is done within a laid down time period. Even the audit report says that it is on the basis of test checks it has been done. Anti-evasion activities are generally done on the basis of intelligence which are developed or which are somebody informs, or some scrutiny of documents or third party information is matched, then only something is developed, then only the anti-evasion activities are concerned. Theoretically speaking, post audit also the anti-evasion activity can be done. So that is my take. Then there are decisions of various high courts wherein they have laid down that the parallel proceedings cannot be done, cannot be initiated against the taxpayer. RP Buildcon case is there, NB Management Consultants India case is there, and there are other judgments also. But generally speaking, one tax authority having initiated some investigation, other authority on that issue cannot start the proceedings.
Thank you, sir. I believe, friends, many of us queries have been answered by the sir very well, because this has been an area of confusion for all the taxpayers as well as professionals. So, sir, coming back to you, I want regarding this particular topic itself, sir, inquiry. I want to ask you from a professional's perspective who has such a good experience in working in this indirect taxation regime. Sir, according to you, a person who is undergoing an inquiry or an audit proceedings, according to you, what documentation or what timelines or what things should be kept in mind by the taxpayer so that the inquiry or in the audit can be concluded in a very cooperative manner, leading to no unfavorable discrepancies being pointed out, or because many a times we see, sir, ऑडिट में डेटा नहीं दिया, इंक्वायरी में डेटा नहीं दिया, तो पूरा बैलेंस शीट की फिगर पे टैक्स बन जाता है या बेस्ट जजमेंट असेसमेंट इन्वोक होता है. So what things should be kept in mind by the taxpayers while undergoing any kind of inquiry or scrutiny so that the department does not come to any unfavorable conclusion?
Anmol, I will say this is something that the prevention is better than cure. So I believe that if we are well prepared for any kind of audit or inquiry or maybe anti-evasion or anything else is there, and we are creating a due diligence approach for our activities on a regular basis, I believe that the majority of the concerns you have raised, that there will not be any kind of adverse situation, I believe that will not arise at all. So it's very important for all of our friends here who are listening this program that we have to ensure maybe a kind of a health checkup or a due diligence approach that should be there for every SSC to whom you are rendering the advisory services. Now, when we are doing a pre-audit or a kind of a quarterly review or a diagnostic study or a health checkup, whatever you will say or whatever the words you pronounce, I believe that will help a lot. Now, when you are doing this health checkup, what kind of a checklist can be there which one should check so that there will not be any kind of a tomorrow surprise for the SSC.
Right.
Now, the first one, I will say that there should be a complete synchronization between the turnover which is reported under the GSTR 1, 3B, 9 and the financial statement. So there should be a proper reconciliation every time the assessee should prepare or the professional, that there should not be any mismatch. And even if there is a mismatch, there should be a justification. Like you are doing a bank reconciliation statement in old days. Likewise, there should be a reconciliation statement should be prepared by the assessee or the professional, that even if there is a difference, then why there difference is there. And even I will go further, that even up to the 3B as well. Other than 3B, the e-way bill. So the GSTR 1, GSTR 3B, GSTR 9, financial statement and the e-way bill, all should be in a synchronized manner, that everything should be matched. Now coming to the another part of the case where we find that okay, there are the common mistakes which are being committed is in the ITC. Now when we talk about the ITC, again there are the various mantras. If I have the time of 2 or 3 minutes, I will just share with you that when we talk about the section 16, 17, 18, which are related to the ITC, there are the many mistakes which are normally being committed by the SSC. For example, when the section 16 talks about the eligibility, that whether the credit which you are taken is related to your business, number one. Number two, whether you have a valid invoice available with you, okay, whether the invoice is available or not. Number two, whether it is a valid invoice or not. Number three, whether the supplier has paid the tax or not. Number four, whether you have received the goods or services. Okay, and for that matter, the stock register is a very important document that one should carry. The fifth one, that you have filed your return well in time or not, because now the 16.4 vis-a-vis the return filed well in time or not is something there which need to be checked. Number six, whether you have paid the payment to the vendor within 180 days from the date of invoice or not. Number seven, that in case you are dealing in a taxable or exempted supplier, whether you have followed the rule 42, 43 or not. Number eight, whether this is a block credit or not. So in case there is a block credit, you have to see that whether you are taking the credit of a motor vehicle or you are taking a credit of a health insurance or a rent a car, then again there will be a problem. Number nine, that whether, say for example, you are selling a old asset for less than 5 years of use, then you have to create a reversal under section 18 subsection 6. And number 10, whether you have a proper ITC register available or not. So unless and until you are not having all these details well prepared, well documented and well researched, there will be bound to be a problem, because that will be there. And even I will go further with the 11th one, which is a very common these days, is the reconciliation between a 2A versus 3B. Because the credit in the department ledgers are coming differently. Some vendors vanished away, some vendors gone, and now you are claiming that credit, meaning thereby you are in trouble. That tomorrow there will be a scrutiny and you have to reverse your credit along with the interest and penalty, or you have to argue your case. So that is something that again very important for all of us to. Then, my dear friend, there are certain other common errors which I feel that should be taken care. Is something about the liability towards the RCM. Now, when to pay, on which activity you have to pay the RCM liability, when you have to pay the RCM liability, how you have to pay the RCM liability, and when you can claim the credit of the tax paid under RCM liability are the very pertinent questions one should have the understanding. Likewise, there are many issues which I can speak. So, my dear friends, what I am trying to convey you, that in case we are well prepared, and I will tell you the three very important registers which are the soul of the entire ITC system. This number one is the stock register, number two is the ITC register, and number three the fixed asset register. Actually, if you are having these three registers, you are regularly reviewing, I believe that the 70% of the problem related to ITC will go. And that is something that very important we need to understand. The last but not the least, assess your turnover. When you are showing that, okay, this is my turnover, and you are trying to bifurcate that turnover into the different part, that the taxable or exempted or the whatever the rates are there, whether you can substantiate that this rate is right, whatever the rate, say for example, you are saying my activity is falling under the 5% category, whether that is right or not is something that you need to consider. And then comes the rule section 8, which talk about the mixed supply versus composite supply. So these days you are getting a stocks along with a shoe free, whether that is a composite supply or a mixed supply. Because in case that activity will classify as a mixed supply, then the highest of the rate which will be applicable on your entire supply, which you have made in a combo rate. So, my dear friend, these are the few points which I just touch upon, and because of the paucity of time, that these are the very important points which you should consider, have a diagnostic review on an occasional basis, so that if the tomorrow the departmental audit or anti-evasion or any other exercise is there, you are in a safe position, safe hands.
Sir, there is this one point that you very rightly mentioned or added, I would say, regarding the matching of EWA bill, because these days we see that the notices have started to come up on this issue also, on this reconciliation also, that because of making duplicate EWA bills against the same invoice, the demand.
Even I will go further that these days the notices are coming whether you are eligible to, you are liable to issue the e-invoice, and whether you have issued the e-invoice or not. And in case there will be a kind of a inquiry which are being getting initiated.
And now the credit is also dependent on e-invoice. Now, if the supplier is liable to issue e-invoice, but he hasn't issued the invoice, then your credit would be you will be in a difficult position, because the law provides that the normal invoice is not a valid invoice for availing credit. So you need to see whether your supplier was liable to issue e-invoice and you have received the invoice also.
Sir, on this e-invoice issue only, we have received a query from Mr. Abhinav. Would like to take up this query here only. Sir, he mentions that some vendors are not generating e-invoice, so they are being asked to pay penalty for not generating e-invoice. Is department also going after recipient of these invalid invoices, that even if GST ITC is coming in to be, but since e-invoice was not generated, then this is not a valid invoice under section 16(2)(a), read with rule 48, 4 and 5. So,
Yeah,
like you mentioned,
that is what I said, that the provisions have been made. Probably they have not been enforced at this point in time, because the department is doing the audit of yesteryears. So once the audit of this year comes up, then this issue would definitely be raised, that your supplier was liable to issue invoice, you were supposed to get e-invoice, and you have not got the invoice, therefore your credit you are not eligible to take the credit. Those issues may come up at a later date.
Thank you so much, sir. So, friends, we have a lot of questions that you wanted to ask. I believe those questions are on your behalf only. You are very much enjoying these questions that we are asking both the stalwarts. But looking at the time, I believe we should quickly jump on to the questions that you have all mentioned in the chat box or you have given in advance. So, Atul sir, I have a very pertinent issue that I wanted to ask. In a very brief, sir, I want to ask you that how to deal with.
But before that, if you allow, what Atulji has mentioned about the mantras about availing credit, and then somebody or you mentioned section 74 earlier.
Yes, sir.
So, section 74, as you know, is upon fraud, misrepresentation, willful suppression, and all that. One thing which I would like to inform to our listeners is that, you know, GSTR 3B contains many columns in which the information is to be given. For example, with respect to ITC, that what is the full purchases you have made, then what credit you are eligible, what credit you are taken, what credit is deferred, you will take later on. So I would urge everyone that those rows should be filled in very carefully, so that you must declare all your purchases and you must declare all your credit, so that the willful suppression aspect cannot be put on you, that this credit you had taken or you have not taken, you have taken but you were not eligible. So if you declare these things upfront in the return, then this invocation of 74 for willful suppression cannot be invoked.
Like we have judgments, sir, where respective courts have held that if you are showing all the particulars in the return itself, the allegation of suppression
Yeah,
cannot be levied.
so that is what, that one thing but must, keep in mind.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for adding this point, sir. Sir, I was asking this question from you. Mr. Abhinav has asked this question, and I believe many of the viewers have this question that, sir, how to deal with this 3B versus 2A notices? So, if I have made a genuine purchase, I have made the payment to the vendors also. In those cases, if the credit is not reflecting in my 2A due to wrong filing on behalf of the vendor, so in that case, sir, what submission should I take and how should I deal with those notices?
Anmol, I believe that this is a very, I will say, the most
Time consuming.
time consuming and a most pertinent question, because these days, the out of the 10 show cause notice or the ASMT 10, the 8 are pertaining to this particular part only. The first of all, I believe that everybody, that one thing is very much clear to everybody, that they are aware whether the invoice, whatever the invoice, so there may be a reason that when you have the invoice available, whether this being alleged to be a fake invoice. So in case the buyer is aware that okay, he actually purchased the goods or the services as the case may be, and now because of certain reasons, the supplier registration got cancelled with a retrospective date. So his credit will be certainly into the allegation, or I will say will be subject to the litigation. Now, I believe that you are aware about the various judgments. Say, for example, the Suncraft judgment, which says that, and vis-a-vis the circular which was being issued by the department itself, that who is liable in this case of a alleged fake invoice is there. Now, my dear friends, as I mentioned you about these two important developments, the Suncraft judgment, which is being uh, given by the Honorable High Court, and the appeal was not entertained by the Honorable Supreme Court, maybe on a limitation of because of the threshold limit, but also because of they mentioned that the circumstances say that okay, it's not a maintainable application at the level of the Honorable Supreme Court. The one thing which I will say, or I will say, I will try to classify this aspect into many windows. Now, the first window is that whenever you have this kind of a notice, you should check. So one thing is that you should always check, continue to check always that kind of that okay, whether any vendor registration is getting cancelled or not in the last 5 years to 7 years of purchase. But when you have received this notice, first of all, you should check with the vendor whether this cancellation of registration is a post facto or a pre facto. Meaning thereby, for example, you purchased in the year 2021 and his registration got cancelled. Though today it cancelled, but it was cancelled from 2022. Meaning thereby that your date of purchase was much earlier than the date of cancellation of a registration. In that case, there is no challenge. Even it is being given under the various judgment as well. And the interpretation of the law also says that okay, then there will not be any issue at all. But yes, if the case is there, then when your purchase was 2021 and registration got cancelled from 2017, as the Suncraft judgment says that the first owner on the department is to review the supplier, whether the supplier is available or not, number one. So it should not be straightway that they should come to the buyer that okay, you have to reverse the credit, number one. Number two, that then the buyer has to prove a bona fide, not only in terms of the documents available, but also in terms of the that the supplier was filing his return regularly for that particular point of time, and but because of the some other events happened later on, his registration got cancelled. So what I'm trying to convey you, for example, you have the e-way bill available, you have the entry in the stock register, you have the toll plaza slips is there, you have the invoice available, meaning thereby you are in a position to prove that the goods were actually being received. Now the first part is this section 16 requirement is that on the goods, whether the goods are being received or not. The next part is that whether the supplier has paid the tax or not. Now that is also very important that we need to understand that there may be a situation where the supplier has paid the tax. They filed their return 3B at that particular point of time. That is getting reflected in the column 8A of the GSTR 9. But now later on, because of the, say for example, I came across with a situation recently when a proprietor get ill for continuous 6 months period and he could not file the return. And his registration got cancelled from a retrospective date from the 1st of July 2017. So in that case, the Honorable High Court mentioned that, okay, what is this? How you can cancel the registration with a retrospective date when everybody was? So there may be a situation when your supplier was regularly paying the tax, but because of certain financial hardship or because of certain situation, now his registration got cancelled. Though it should not be cancelled from a present date, but it got cancelled from a retrospective date. Then also you can argue very well that okay, no, it is not a case that my tax has not been paid. So there are the two requirements. One, that the goods or service has been received, and number two, the tax has been paid by the supplier. Both need to be read differently, distinguishedly, separately, and accordingly you need to prove that okay, this is the case that okay, I have received the goods, number one, and the supplier has paid the tax.
Thank you so much, sir, for quickly walking us through how to deal with these notices and what things to be kept in mind. So, friends, coming to the chat box, sir, coming back to the question of section 73 and 74, Mr. Rajesh Kumar Khurana ji asked, one of the issue being faced is adjudication under section 73 or 74 of the CGST Act. My question here is that in case SCN has been received under section 74 and the allegations of fraud, willful misstatement, etc. Is not established, does the adjudicating authority have the power to issue adjudication order under section 73? If so, under which subsection? Because section 74 does not appear to be giving any such discretion to the adjudicating authority. So, sir, the question sums up to this particular thing that whether adjudicating authority can convert section 74 SCN into section 73 or not.
No, it is not it is not the question of converting show-cause notice into 73. The point is that there is a limitation period of 3 years in 73 and there is a limitation of 5 years in 74. But 74 can be invoked when there is a suppression, etc. So if the allegation of suppression, etc. are not sustainable and the date on which the show-cause notice has been issued is well within the time limit laid down in 73. So for the normal period, definitely the tax authority can pass the order confirming the demand of normal period. That you have to you have to read the provisions in such a way that but if the show-cause notice, if the period for which the demand is there is beyond 73 limitation, then yes, he cannot confirm the demand. So this also flows from, I think there is a provision of 75 or 76 wherein it has been specifically mentioned that if the appellate authority find that the allegation are not sustainable, then they can confirm the demand for the normal period.
Thank you, sir. Section 75, I believe, it has been mentioned. So, sir, coming to you, this is a query raised by, I believe, Mr. Sanket More as well, Mr. Rakesh Agarwala also. That, sir, how to deal with the cases of section 16, subsection 4? How do we file our submissions and what?
Anmol, I will just give a quick answer because we have now a judgment from the Honorable Madras High Court, which says that in case you are getting a show-cause notice, as far as the section 4 is concerned, the Honorable Madras High Court held that the period which is being defined under the law for the claiming the credit, availing the credit as far as the 16(4) is concerned was related to the GSTR 2, which was not made applicable. So I'm just sharing with you the situation, the present ruling which came. Though the Andhra Pradesh Honorable Andhra Pradesh High Court held that the 16(4) is constitutionally valid, but the Honorable Madras High Court held that it was, since it was related to the GSTR 2 which was not made applicable. So on the basis of the GSTR 3B, you cannot deny the credit under section 16 subsection 4. So I believe that one necessary at least take an argument, at least when they are replying, making the replies to the show cause notices, that the Honorable Madras High Court decision is in their favor, and they may argue.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. Mr. Anup Modi ji asked, sir, this question goes for you. Can officer revise the show cause notice within time limit?
This is a very tricky question, but uh, to my mind, once a show cause notice has been issued, unless there are mistakes apparent on record, to my mind, show cause notice cannot be revised, even if it is within the time limit. That is my personal view.
Thank you, sir. Sir, like you mentioned in your deliberation that in many cases the officer has not applied their mind and they maybe they did not give the hearing and the matter is remanded back by the higher authority. So Mr. Anup Modi ji asked, what is the benefit of remanding back the case?
No, the remanding back may have a different, I will say, the permutation and combinations. For example, there is a case when your demand was created under the best judgment assessment, and the liability was created by adding 20% on an annual turnover. Now you are giving your your actual financial statement. Now the appellate authority is not going to check all those details. So what they have to do, they have to remand back. Number two, for example, in a recent case which I argued in the tribunal, what happened that there was a contention by the SSC that I paid this tax, but the department was not able to confirm that. Now, whether the tribunal is going to do a fact-finding aspect, no. Certainly, the tribunal, the honorable tribunal, what will do, they will remand back the case to check the authenticity. So there may be the 20 such reasons or 20 such situation when the cases are getting remand back. So it is not a case that okay, every time it will be in your favor. Okay, so it will not be a case, but there may be a situation like this. So remand back maybe for many reasons and maybe plus or minus.
So basically, the remand back has the biggest benefit of being heard by the authority.
So even I will just share with you what you just mentioned, that I shared with you in my initial remarks that the opportunity of being heard was not being provided. Now you are going to the higher authority, sir, my order was without opportunity of being heard was provided. They issued the order. Now the higher authority, what the higher authority will say? The higher authority will say, though, now I am remanding back, you give an opportunity, you give the time to submit the reply, and then only you adjudicate. So there is no favor or against.
Right. So in this manner, the assessee can have the opportunity to present its case before.
Yes.
So sir, moving forward, there is this one, again, I'll come to you, sir, because you mentioned earlier that many a times authorities also do not consider your reply. So Mr. Sanjeev Jain has this question that we had replied strong fact for audit para raised in observations of show cause notice, but our fact was not replied by Deputy Commissioner and demand order has been issued. What remedy is available in this case?
So it's a demand order. It's not so it's a demand order or it's a demand notice. So I believe Sanjeev ji wish to convey because it will be adjudicating order. It will not be a demand order.
Yes.
Okay. So if it is a demand notice, so meaning thereby there was an audit para. Now the audit para you replied, there was a MCM approved the para and they issued the demand notice. Now the Sanjeev ji, you have the opportunities available to prepare a good reply of the show cause notice, demand come show cause notice, and appear before the authorities, higher authorities, when there will be a personal hearing, and your case will be adjudicated. So I believe that you are talking about more the demand come show cause notice. This is again very important. Yesterday program also I mentioned that we need to have the clear understanding. What is show cause notice? What is demand notice? What is a demand order?
Yes.
So, and at times the member are somebody like ask me that whether I have to do a pre-deposit of 10% before getting adjudicated. So it's very important that first it will be a show cause notice. The show cause notice can be there for many reasons. Say for example, there is a disagreement between the when the reply to the ASFT 10 was submitted. Then there was an audit disagreement. There is an anti-evasion inquiry. There is an erroneous refund granted. So for all those reasons, the show cause notice or the demand notice can be raised by the department, and then there will be a personal hearing, opportunity of being heard will be provided, and then the case will be adjudicated. And if you are aggrieved with the order in original, then you will file appeal with a 10% pleading.
Right.
So the legal hierarchy, we should have the clarity.
Sir, similar to this question, there is a question by Advocate Soumya Jain. She's asking that I have filed a reply under this to show cause notice issued under Section 70B, but the officer has not accepted my reply and passed the order. They are not satisfied with the order because their contentions are not being considered. So she wants to ask whether should I go for the rectification mechanism or should I go for the appeal directly?
So rectification is only when there is a mistake apparent on record. So here there is no mistake apparent on record. The order passed by the adjudicating authority at best can be called a non-speaking order. So the only option available to the taxpayer is that they have to file appeal with the next forum. That is what the legal provision is. Because the adjudicating authority cannot revise his own order once he has passed the order. So I think the term used for him is functions officio, that he has now, he cannot pass any, he cannot do anything with respect to the order which he has already passed. But what he can do at best is to rectify the mistake which is apparent on record, some calculation mistake, some typo error, something, things like that.
Right. So the best course of action is go for
Only
appeal
course,
only.
not best course. The only course of action is
go for appeal because rectification does not allow for these types of cases.
oh yes.
Sir, there is a question by one of our participants coming to you, sir, that ITC blocked due to non-existence of supplier without any notice related to financial year 21-22. After 7 days, 21st of Jan 2024, they issued DRC 1A under Section 74 for payment of tax along with interest and penalty. Supplier filed all the returns within due dates and made GST payment, and it has been reflecting in 2B of the recipient.
So as I mentioned you, the case of a Suncraft, I believe will be very handy for this gentleman. When the supplier has filed all his return, there was no inquiry on the part of the supplier, and straightway the credit or the other accounts were seized or account credit were blocked. Credit was blocked as far as the buyer is concerned. So if they will go to the higher forum, they will file appeal. Certainly, I believe that they will get the benefit.
Sir, again, another question goes to you. It is being asked by Mr. Mohit Gaba. The SCN does not bifurcate GST. It is a more of a procedural thing, sir. The SCN does not bifurcate GST, the demand into I, C, and S, but the order bifurcates that. So, is the SCN or the order valid, and is there any section in this regard?
Sir, I only answered this question a few days back to me that how these penalties and other demands should be separately mentioned in the C plus S. So I believe, sir, will be able to give an answer.
Please, sir.
Actually, for example, the rate of tax is 18%, 9% C, 9 plus S. And if it is interstate supply, entire 18% is I. So, generally speaking, when the show cause notice is issued or when the order is issued, the demand should be confirmed for 9% under CGST Act, 9% under SGST Act. Similarly, penalty should also be leviable under the respective acts. That is how the order should be.
Thank you so much, sir. So, friends, we have a lot of queries, but I believe we are already past our time. So, and we have been able to cover many important aspects like the issue of intermediary, the issue of 2A versus 3B, the issue of Section 16(4), the applicability of this, the invocation of section 129. So I believe that we should be summing up today's discussion, sir. So in the end, I would like to thank sir for giving us so much background about the law. I believe friends, हम लोगों को ये background कहीं पे भी कोई भी नहीं दे सकता है जिस तरीके से सर ने दिया। हम प्यार से सर को जीएसटी मैन भी बोलते हैं। तो आई बिलीव कि सर ने जो हमें बैकग्राउंड दिया पूरे जीएसटी लॉ को लेके कि कैसे आया, जैसे हमने ई वे बिल का भी आस्क्ड अ क्वेश्चन रिगार्डिंग द ई वे बिल। So before answering that question, sir has given us a brief background of why this e-way bill was brought forward and what was the intent, what was the procedure that was to be easen up because of this e-way bill mechanism. So I believe sir ने बहुत अच्छे से हम लोगों को वो चीज समझाई। एंड सर आपने बहुत, एक तो सबसे अच्छा चीज सर मेरे को लगा द मंत्रा ऑफ गुड ड्राफ्टिंग, दैट व्हेनेवर अ केस कम्स अप, how to go around that, how to do the legal drafting. So many a times people do कि जैसा सर ने बोला कि आया और बनाना शुरू, तो सर ने बड़ा अच्छे से बताया कि हाउ टू बाइफरकेट योर टाइम कि 3 आवर्स आप इस पे डिवोट कीजिए, 4 आवर्स इस पे डिवोट कीजिए। प्लस जो भी क्वेश्चन हमने सर से पूछा, सर ने बड़े अच्छे पॉइंटर्स वे में और बहुत एक सेग्रीगेशन करके एक बहुत क्लियर वे में बताया। सो सर आई थैंक बोथ ऑफ यू for such a beautiful deliberation, sir. I believe many of us have learned a lot. I personally have learned a lot from today's deliberation. And at the end, I would like to thank Team Taxo for organizing such a beautiful event, जिसकी वजह से हम लोगों को आज इतना कुछ सीखने को मिला और हमारे साथ सर और सर की अवेलेबिलिटी रही। थैंक यू सो मच फ्रेंड्स।